So we all know that the sewing is the really fun part, and things like maintaining your sewing machine, cleaning it, they might sound a little bit boring, not that exciting, but actually if you take good care of your machine and you know a few key tips for diagnosing different problems yourself, the chances are you're going to spend less time sending your machine off to be repaired or serviced unnecessarily, which ultimately means more time sewing, and that makes all of us happy. And here at Sew Essential, we are experts in sewing machines, so I just wanted to share my top tips for you for how you can look after your beloved sewing machine and keep getting those great results. If you are looking for a new sewing machine as well, don't hesitate to contact us. We've got a great range on the website, and what we don't know about those machines isn't worth knowing. But more importantly, we love taking you through a journey of discovery to narrow down that overwhelming sort of choice that's on the market these days and get you match made with your perfect dream machine. So do get in touch with us, drop us an email, give us a call if you'd like that service from us. But let's get on with the tips now. So the first thing I want to talk about is thread tension. So if you notice that the thread tension is out, if your stitches are too loose or too tight, here's how you can diagnose and work out if there's a problem with the needle tension or the bobbin tension. To test your needle thread tension, thread the machine in the usual way, and then instead of passing the thread underneath the foot like you would when you were threading the machine normally, let the thread run free of the foot, put the foot down, and then if you just gently pull on the thread, if the tension on the machine is working, you should see the needle just moving slightly because the resistance of that tension is fighting back as you pull the thread. Now, if there's a problem with the tension and the tension isn't working properly, I can show you by lifting the foot. The thread will just run freely through the needle, so you can see the needle isn't really moving there. The thread is running freely. If I put the foot down again, you can see here that there is more tension. The needle is moving as I'm pulling the thread. To test the thread tension in the bobbin, you need to remove the bobbin case from the machine. So you just remove the cover, and then usually you get a little screwdriver with your machine which will help you to just lift up the needle plate and remove that. And then underneath there you will find the bobbin case, and there's a mechanism in this that puts tension on the bobbin as it's fed through the machine. So I'm just going to show you how to test that is working. So take your bobbin, and you always put your bobbin in the bobbin case in a P shape, so the thread coming down the left hand side creates a P. I'm just going to cut this thread a bit shorter, and I'm going to take the bobbin case out of the machine, place the bobbin in the case, and then thread it in the usual way. So I'm going to make sure it goes through the little hook that it does when I thread the machine normally, and as it goes through there the tension is applied. So when I pull that, it shouldn't be running really freely, and it shouldn't be super tight either. I should just feel some resistance on that, and hopefully you can see that as I'm pulling it through. Now if I unhook it from there, you'll be able to see this is what would happen if the tension was shot on your bobbin case. The thread would just run through very freely, or if it was too tight it would be very difficult to pull. Now, one thing I would like to say here is that we always recommend that you don't adjust your bobbin case tension yourself. Always leave it in the factory settings, and if there is an issue with it, speak to an engineer or get it serviced, or speak to whoever you bought the machine from. Get in touch with us. If you want to work with speciality threads, or you're trying a technique where you want to mess with the bobbin case tension, sometimes people like to do that when they're sewing with a twin needle, we'd always recommend that you buy a spare bobbin case. We sell them on our site for a wide range of machines, and then you have one that you keep with the factory settings, and you have one that you play around with and mess around with when you're trying various various different techniques, and that way you know you can always get back to those factory settings. Just a couple more tips I'd like to give you about tension as well. Usually, if the problem is occurring on the top of the fabric, counterintuitively, it means the tension issue is underneath in the bobbin case. And vice versa, if the problem is occurring on the bottom of the fabric, you're getting thread looping on the bottom of the fabric, for example, usually it means there's a problem with the tension on top, the needle tension. The other thing I wanted to add in here as well is that lots of modern machines these days come with automatic thread tension. So based on what the machine thinks you're going to be doing, what type of stitch you're going to be doing, or what type of fabric you're going to be using in the more sophisticated machines, it will set the tension to what it thinks it needs to be. However, it is a computer, and whilst that will work brilliantly, probably 95% of the time, maybe more, if you're doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, you're using a speciality fabric or a speciality thread, there are occasions when you need to be prepared to just have a go at testing some different samples, and you might want to override that automatic thread tension. In my experience, it's very rare on the machines I've had, but ultimately if your machine has got automatic thread tension and you're not quite happy with the stitches, don't automatically assume it is a thread tension issue. Obviously you can do the tests that I've just shown you, but then other things to try a different needle, try using a foot for that technique. You might need a speciality foot, you might want to use a stabilizer. If your fabric's getting dragged into the machine, you might want to use a straight stitch plate. You might want to lengthen your stitch, adjust the tension. So there's lots of things you can try before assuming that there's something wrong with the machine. And my mantra is always test on scraps of fabric first before you go on to your real project, and just be prepared to have a little bit of an experiment and play around, and then you'll get the results you want. Something that is really important and probably not that sexy or exciting is keeping your sewing machine nice and clean. So it's really important to get a little bit into those inner workings. The major inner workings will happen in a service, but for you, just between projects, it's always a really good job to get in and have a good clean. Keeping your machine clean is also really important to get the best out of it, and you need to give the bobbin case area a very thorough cleaning. So you'd be surprised how much, if I just remove the needle plate, you'd be surprised how much fluff and lint and dust you can find under here. Don't be scared to take the different components out, just remember how you need to put them back in. But removing the bobbin case is really important, and getting a brush and just giving it a good clean round. Mine is nice and clean, but you know, even after a few projects you can find that quite a lot of dust and lint and whatever can build up in that area. Give your bobbin case a really good clean as well. I'm just using a little brush here. Usually you get one of these with your machine and they do pick the fluff and the dust up really, really well. Give everything a nice clean. Anywhere you can see a bit of dust, give it a brush. We do recommend using the brush with the machine rather than using a little mini vacuum or anything like that, or a little air duster, because sometimes those things can actually push dust and fluff further into the machine, whereas the brush will tease it out, it'll pick it up, it'll pick up any little bits of thread. And I always recommend as well just keeping the rest of the machine nice and clean, even where the thread is on the thread spool, all around there. Keep that clean, because obviously the thread can pick up the dust from other places in the machine and bring that through and into the internal workings of the machine as well. So always keep everything nice and clean. Another problem you might encounter is that the fabric's not feeding through the machine correctly, and in my experience there's a couple of reasons why this might happen. Number one, are you using the correct foot for the technique that you're doing and the fabric that you're using? And number two, sometimes people have left the feed dogs disengaged. So when they've been doing free motion embroidery on their machine, for example, there's an option to drop the feed dogs so that you can move the fabric and effectively draw with the thread. And sometimes people forget that they've dropped the feed dogs, or they don't realise they've dropped the feed dogs, and they just need to re-engage them for the machine to sew in the normal way and feed the fabric through again. My next top tip is to have your machine serviced regularly, ideally every 12 months. And a service shouldn't just be a light touch, just a bit of an oiling. A good service should test all of those key stitches, things like a satin stitch, a straight stitch, a buttonhole, and embroidery stitches if relevant. It also will take all the covers off, the hook cover will come off, and they'll actually look at the gears and the feed mechanism. They'll clean out any contaminated oil and lubrication if necessary, and they'll check the settings of the hook height and the needle clearance. Then they'll reassemble the machine, check the bobbin sensors if the machine has them, and test all of the key stitches again. And I had to refer to my notes for that one because it is very thorough. I was struggling to remember all the different things that a good service engineer will do with your machine. So it's just to kind of highlight the importance of having that done really. It's not a light touch, it's literally getting right into the inner workings of your machine and testing that all the settings are correct and everything's working properly. Now, on the subject of oiling, most modern machines don't require oiling. They're self-lubricating, so there's something inside the machine that releases the lubrication as and when it's needed, and will prevent it from being over-lubricated. The danger of putting oil in yourself is that you over-lubricate, and that can actually cause problems as well. It can cause things like lint and fluff to get stuck inside the machine. So it's definitely worth leaving that up to your service engineer. If you know that there's a part of your machine that needs oiling, the other thing you can do is use a silicone spray instead, because it's far less sticky, but it will keep things nice and clean and working. But really my advice would be leave any oiling or lubrication for your annual service. Finally, we're going to have a quick think about the most important things, the tools that you use with your machine. So always use the right needle. Change your needle regularly. A blunt needle can cause so many problems with the stitch quality. And remember that there are a wide range of needles on the market, all of which are available on our website. We've got a great range, and do select the right needle for the type of fabric you're using and the technique that you want to sew. Also, make sure that you're using the right bobbins for your machine. There's a huge range of bobbins on the market again, and if you use the wrong one with your machine, even if it's the same make, it's the same brand, there are different types of bobbin within the brands, and if you use the wrong one with your machine, it can cause problems with the stitch quality again. And then finally, always use a good quality thread. There'll be less lint, there'll be less fluff created, and that will mean that your sewing machine stays in really good working order and you get great results from your sewing. We stock a huge range of threads on our website, including all the top brands, Gutermann, Metler, Madeira, so do jump on and check those out as well. And don't forget, we've got a brilliant range of sewing machines on the website. We also sell accessories for all the big brands as well, and we are experts in the field, so if there's anything you need to ask us, don't hesitate to drop us an email. We're always very happy to help. I hope you've enjoyed that today. I hope it's going to be nice and useful for you and you feel confident to go forward and look after your beloved sewing machine. And if you enjoyed what you saw today, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.